Well, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce someone that I've known about a good 4 years now. Um, I work with her at the world famous Monster Factory. She's one of the coaches there, but her wrestling career goes over 25 years, and she's been everywhere. And she's starting her own promotion, Bell to Bell. We're going to talk about her career, her coaching, and now her as a wrestling promoter for an all wins promotion, the one and only Missy Sampson. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you?
Thanks, Dee. Thanks for asking me. I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I appreciate it. So, like I said, it's an honor and a privilege to have someone of your expertise that's been in this business for, like I said, half a century. I would say
We're up
I would
to
say
we're
quarter
up
of a
to
century,
28 now.
28 years. Wow, incredible.
Yeah, I
So, I
did the
mean,
math today driving over to the school. Yeah, we're at 28.
wow. So you've been around a while, and we're going to talk about everything, as far as wrestling, but we're going to talk about young Missy as far as growing up in Philly area. So tell me about life growing up as young Missy growing up in Philly.
Um, I grew up in a suburb of Philly.
Okay.
Growing up, it was a couple of years later, well, many years later, depending on how little Missy we're talking,
Hmm.
that I actually lived in the city. But I grew up with parents who divorced when I was 4.
Hmm.
I have an older half sister from my dad's first marriage that I didn't meet till I was 29 or 30.
Mm.
I have 3 older full-blooded sisters. I'm the youngest.
Hmm.
My parents divorced when I was 4. My dad married my stepmother, who a lot of people will hear me refer to as my mother. To me, that was my mother, my stepmother.
Right.
They married when I was 11 or 12.
Okay.
Angel of a woman. She's no longer with us.
Hmm.
In 2008, I lost my stepmom to pancreatic cancer.
Mm.
In 2009, I lost my dad to congestive heart failure.
Mm.
And then they found my biological mother. The last couple of years of her life, I didn't speak to her at all. I wanted nothing to do with her.
Mm.
But they found her dead in 2011
Oh my God.
in her apartment. Yeah, she had died of, I think she had a heart attack, I think is what it
Mm.
was. But she also had pneumonia and a bunch of other stuff at the time.
Wow.
So, and when my parents divorced when I was 4, my dad owned a hair salon.
Hmm.
At the time, he was a hairdresser,
Okay.
and so he got primary custody of me and my 3 older sisters.
Hmm.
And then he was running his own business, so he wasn't home a lot. And when he was home, he liked to watch wrestling. That's where I get it from. I always
Hmm.
psychoanalyze myself and say, I think as a kid, I wanted my dad's attention. And when he'd come home from work, he just wanted to sit and relax. So he would turn on wrestling. And I think if I psychoanalyze it now, I jumped up on the couch. If this is the time I can have with my dad, I'll get into it. What are we doing? Like that kind of thing. So that's, but I was a good student most of my life. I did drop out of high school when I was 17.
Hmm.
Um, because I had a lot going on. I was moving between my dad and my biological mother's house and
Right.
a bunch of that back and forth. And, um, I did end up getting a GED.
Okay.
As in May of 2023, I just got my bachelor's degree. So,
There you go.
yep. So, but so growing up was like, wasn't easy, but
Wow, and it's incredible that we have all these different, journeys that led us to, us knowing each other and everything.
yeah.
I mean, I have a similar story in the sense of, how I started watching wrestling was really with my mom and my grandmother. That's how I started watching wrestling. So, and we're the same age, you know what I
Who
mean? So it's
was
like
who was grandma's favorite?
she was actually a fan of Bruno Sammartino. She loved Bruno and
He did special guest commentary on my very first match ever.
wow, incredible. And I was actually, when I went to the WWE Hall of Fame in 2013 at Madison Square Garden, the first person I thought of was my grandmother when Bruno got up there to speak. And I was at his Hall of Fame induction. And I mean, you could hear a pin drop in the garden, and everyone had, he had everyone's undivided attention because of just who he is.
Who he is, yeah.
Absolutely. So you talk about growing, you watching wrestling with your dad. So Was it, obviously, was it WWF? What's some of the other promotions you were watching?
Yeah, like I remember when I was just watching with my dad, it was primarily WWF, and then I got into, World Class, and
Mm,
which then spiraled into WCW, and
hmm.
so I was watching that stuff. We didn't have the internet then,
Right, exactly.
so
We didn't. No.
I didn't find out independent wrestling existed till I was 16. So, I thought, these TV productions were all you had.
Right.
And then when I was younger, I watched the original incarnation of Glow.
Who was your
Huge
favorite on there,
Hollywood,
by the way?
Vine. Hollywood and Vine were my
I went by.
favorites. And I got to meet Hollywood years later when I was in the business. We were at a signing convention type deal together. Sweet as can be. Sweet as can be. Was a fan of Mountain Fuji. God rest her
Hmm.
beautiful, beautiful soul.
Hmm.
Yeah, but that was primarily what I watched growing up. That stuff. Now, when I, turned 16, found out about independent wrestling and different promotions, then you had the tape trader days where I would have, I would get tapes of like Florida wrestling, Georgia, Smoky Mountain.
Oh yeah, Cornette's
Like
promotion.
when I
Right,
found
right.
out that there was more than these two TV wrestling companies,
Hmm.
like you couldn't keep it from me. I was, yeah.
That was the
Did you
beauty
want to make
of.
an appearance on my interview? Come here. You could say hi. Say hi.
Oh, cat saying hey.
Yeah. This is
Awesome.
Santa.
Hey
I have
Santa, how
another
are you?
one that's also all black.
Awesome.
Say hi to
So
her.
you talk about, you were starting to get to understand, obviously before you were 16, it was just obviously the two big promotions at the time, WWF and WCW. Then of course you're learning about all these different independent promotions. So as you were starting, when you were, as you were getting older and everything, when did the light bulb go off when you said, "Hey, I'm gonna go learn this trade as a professional wrestler"? When was it, and what school did you end up going to train?
So hold on one second. I'll put her over here.
Hmm.
Lay down. I'm busy. Um, so one of the the first independent promotion that I found was ECW.
Okay.
My dad's house had burnt. I was living with my biological dad at the time.
Hmm.
I fell asleep cooking. The house caught fire. We were in an apartment. It was the summer. The apartment was like 20 minutes to a half an hour from where we lived. I didn't drive or have a car. Pardon me. So I was like stuck in this apartment all summer long.
Right.
And I remember I was flipping channels one day trying to find something to watch because I was stuck inside. And like I was flipping channels real quick, and like I passed something and my brain went, was that a good looking dude in a wrestling ring? So I go back and I'm watching, and lo and behold, it was a good looking guy in a wrestling ring. And it was ECW. Um, and it was Tommy Dreamer. I'll admit it was Tommy Dreamer, was the good looking guy.
Was this during the
Um,
suspenders air, the
yeah,
suspenders flick?
yeah,
Okay,
mm-hmm,
got it.
yeah. So this was before he became the innovator of violence. Yeah.
Violence, right.
And I was like watching, I was like, what is this? So then like I found out they taped in Philly. And so I again just kind of sponged onto ECW. And one of my older sisters, I had said something to her about, I forget how she found out that I started watching it. And there was a girl that we went to high school with, and she was like, she goes to all those ECW shows. Like she knows all those guys. I was like, what? Oh my God. And so even though my dad had full primary custody, my biological mom would get visitation on weekends.
Hmm.
So it was probably like 2 weeks later that we were at the mall eating in the food court. And lo and behold, but who comes up to me? But this girl who knew everyone. And so she came up to say hello. And pardon me. Still getting over a little bit of a cold.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
She came over to say hello, and I was like, oh my God. I started watching ECW, and my sister, I was like, said, everybody. She's like, oh my God, yeah, I go to all those shows. And they were usually on the weekends, which is
Hmm.
when my biological mom would have me. So she's like, yeah, I'll let you go sometime. And then we'd be setting up that I was going to get to go, and then my dad would ground me for something
Mm,
stupid, and I wasn't able to go a bunch.
right.
And then I ended up moving out of my biological dad's house back to my biological mom's house. It was that time I told you I was going back and forth.
Right, right, right.
So I went to my biological mom's house, and she was like, "Yeah, go, have a great time." So she gave me her car. I picked the girl up and went to ECW and Plymouth meeting at Lewis-Lew Temple, and walked in, and there was like a stage. It's like a Shriners Club. There was like a stage
Okay.
with curtains, and standing on the stage was Too Cold Scorpio. So the first wrestler I ever met was Too Cold Scorpio. And the friend took me over and introduced me and explained it was my first show. And he was like, "Who do you want to meet?" And I was like, so it was great. He brought out who I wanted to meet. And later I got to meet Tommy Dreamer, which was even better. And, and then I just started going to ECW shows. And there was a girl that used to work for ECW back in the day. Her name's Angel Amoroso.
Okay.
She was the Virgin Princess Angel. For those who don't remember, the old ECW opener used to have a black-haired girl in a white wedding dress getting caned. Well, the black-haired girl in the white wedding dress was Angel. So I had been going to a couple of ECW shows, and then Angel was running a indie fed in Philly.
Okay.
I think it was Tri-State Wrestling at the time. I think maybe. Somehow the girl that I was going to these shows with gets booked on that show. She had never trained to wrestle in her life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but she didn't drive. So me and my mom were like, "We'll drive you. It's not a problem. That's cool." So we go down. She does the show. Afterwards, everybody goes out to eat at this place. There's a very long table, and I'm in the middle. My mom's to my left, and Angel is about one person over and across from me. And you got to think this was a time when women wrestlers weren't as abundant as they are now.
Agreed.
And in the middle of general conversation, my mom throws out, "Missy's always wanted to wrestle." And Angel like perked up and she goes, "Really?" She goes, "I'll train you for free just to have somebody else to work with and take around with me."
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh my God, really?" Yes. So I started training at a gym called Hawkins in Philadelphia. It was a 2-car garage. There was always a busted down car in one bay and a busted down ring in the other. And Angel came with me a few times. And I remember when they were trying to teach me how to back bump and I wasn't getting it. New Jack was there. So they started like pushing me over New Jack's back. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, but then Angel stopped coming and the guys at Hawkins kind of took me under their wing. So that's how I got in it.
That's a crazy story. And the fact that it went from how your biological mother ultimately put out there, hey,
Yeah,
she's always wanted to do this. And it just everything just it was all meant to happen. You know what I mean? And
clearly.
I love hearing stories about that. So now that you're training, obviously you're going, I would imagine every week or at least, once a month, wherever
Two
the case.
it was no, we were training like 2, 3 times a week.
Okay. So as you were getting your training in, when was it that they felt comfortable saying, okay, Missy, we're comfortable with you, getting bookings and that type of thing? How long did it
Oh, no,
take
no,
for you
no,
to,
that didn't happen.
oh,
That didn't happen. So what happened was, I'll never forget it. I was at home asleep. I was sleeping. I went to bed early.
hmm,
And my mom comes in and wakes me up. And there was a promoter named Dino Santa. He still promotes in PA, promotes Triple WA Wrestling.
okay.
And he was on the phone. And I had met him through Angel. And I think I'd managed on a couple of his shows. And he was on the phone. So I get on the phone and here he was having a show that weekend. And Angel had said me and her were going to go. Now, she didn't tell me any of this. I didn't know any of this. Angel canceled and he wanted to know if I could still come and if I could wrestle. And I tried to say to him, I'm not ready. I wasn't anywhere near ready.
Right.
And he's like, "We'll figure it out. Just come here." And I said, "Well, I don't have a car that'll take me there." It was in Danville, PA. So he ends up setting me up. He said, "Listen, can you get to the Philadelphia airport?" And I said, "Yeah, I live by a train station. The train goes right to the airport." He goes, "Meet at this terminal at this time." and your ride will be there. So I ended up meeting his ref at the time, Dan Haney, at the airport, who was picking up none other than George the Animal Steel.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So I rode in a van. I'm in the back row. George the Animal Steel's in front of me. And then Dan Haney and his wife were driving to Danville.
Okay.
And I grew up watching George the Animal Steel.
Eating the turnbuckle and the.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Coming
I'm
out.
like behind it, looking at the back of his bald head, like being like, what is going on right now?
Exactly.
And keeping my mouth shut. And Dan starts talking, and Dan mentions it's going to be my first match. And with that, George Animal Steel perks up, turns around, and he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And we start talking, and we get to the building, and Dino comes out to greet George Animal Steel. The door opens. Dino shakes his hand, and George goes, "This girl should go over for the belt tonight. I'm just saying." And I was like, "Wait, what?"
Are you kidding me?
And not kidding you at all.
Wow.
So I get out, and it was at some sort of a school. And their show was in the gymnasium. They had the boys' locker room on the first floor. Girls' locker room was on the second floor. And I was the only girl, so I was put up there. Like, I didn't even walk into the men's room or men's locker room at all. And mind you, again, I was not 18 at the time.
Right.
So I'm in the locker room getting changed, and then the girl I was supposed to wrestle wasn't coming. So they were like, what are we gonna do? And there was a guy who used to wrestle almost in like a Power Ranger gimmick. He was Ranger 7 was his name. So they bring him up to me, and here we pull one of my bras under his gear, stuffed it. I used an entire tube of concealer stick on the stubble on his neck. He wore a mask, and we went out as the sister of Ranger 7. And here's how much of a mark I am, right? So when you come out of the women's locker room, you can either go down the steps and out, or it's one of those school gymnasiums where there's like a balcony up top. Where
I was just about to say that balcony, yeah.
And then the bleachers.
Right.
And I don't know how many people have seen the old Raven entrance where he comes down the bleachers. And I was still very much a mark at that point. I mean, I'm still a mark, but so I was like, no, I went over, feet over the railing, down the bleachers to the ring. Get in the ring, and it was supposed to be a women's title match. And the champ hadn't showed. So here they announce it's for the title. And we had called like 30 seconds. It was under a minute of stuff. And I was going to like bump this dude. He was going to get frustrated and leave, get counted out. And I end up with the title. So before that happens, I get in the ring. Sister of Ranger 7 gets in the ring, which is when they announce special guest commentary, Bruno Sammartino. Now, I know who Bruno Sammartino is.
Right.
So I'm in the ring, nervous as hell. I'm not ready for this. It's my first match. I'm sorry, and you're bringing Bruno Sammartino out here to watch this? Oh, my God. So the 30 seconds went good. I get counted out. They name me as the champ. They snapped the belt on my waist. I instantly rolled out, walked over to the commentary table, stuck my hand out, and introduced myself to Bruno Sammartino. And I used my shoot name, which I was not using to wrestle at that moment. I was wrestling as Jade at the time, and I'm like, Missy Sampson, so nice to meet you, sir.
Wow. So your very first match in the business, you win the title by a count out.
Win the title. You get a 2-hour ride with George the Animal Steel. Get commentary done by Bruno Sammartino. Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah. So as you're going on through your journey, through wrestling, talk about different promotions. I know WSU. I know there was one popular one as far as all women are concerned.
Yeah.
Which other promotions were you working for, or some of the promoters you were working for?
Anyone that would book me. I worked a lot for Dennis Carluzzo.
Okay.
Who ran NWA New Jersey. Anyone who worked in Jersey back in the 90s, man, everyone knows who Dennis is. He was quite the carny, but he wasn't ill-willed. You know what I'm saying? I learned a lot from that man, and and he gave me a lot of opportunity. to work with different people and try stuff out. And Donnie B was his booker for a while, and I can't thank him enough.
Mhm.
Dino Santa. I'm so bad with my memory, you know this. I did work for Dangerous Women of Wrestling, Women's Extreme Wrestling,
Mhm.
Defiant Wrestling out of Connecticut. I used to go work there all the time. NWA Upstate in Rochester, New York. OSPW in Buffalo. Worked for a company, PWA, in Canada, in Toronto. Pretty much anyone that would book me. Have bag will travel.
Right. So during that time, was the goal to get signed by, was it, because obviously, WWF is the only game in town, and then of course there was WCW during the latter years, but then there was TNA and it was Ring of Honor. Was the goal to get signed by those companies?
Yes and no, right? Because I think everyone's goal is to get signed by those companies. Can I help you? I'm giving an interview. Sorry, my cat again.
That's good.
I think everybody's goal is to get signed by one of those companies, right?
Hmm.
But and I say this to our students out at the Monster Factory. I thought I was doing everything I could. I was not. Um, I didn't put enough effort in to try to getting signed. I was very self-conscious. I had started to gain weight. I was very skinny, blonde, very pretty when I started. And I started to gain weight, and so I was very self-conscious about my wrestling skill and things like that. So I never tried, I never did what I should have done or what I needed to do to really go after being signed by those companies. And then, when I was in my prime, when you talk about WWE, that was the Divas era,
Yeah.
and at that point, again, I'd started to gain weight. I wasn't putting bikinis on. I wasn't coming out for a lingerie contest, and that wasn't what I wanted to do anyway. I wanted to wrestle. So
Right. Now, you've mentioned over the years, as far as the different relationships that you've built, we talked about obviously Cindy Rogers, and there's Primetime Amy Lee, then there's Mercedes Martinez. Shout out to Cindy Rogers, who I met so many years ago at,
that's my crew.
yeah, like we were, and she was telling me about some people like Annie Social and all these different people that were wrestling on the independents that a lot of people weren't seen on a national level, on a national scale. And he said, go on YouTube, watch these people. So you talk about these different relationships. Obviously, the notorious 187 homicide, Eddie Kingston that you've mentioned. So how about these relationships that you able to maintain over the years through the world of professional wrestling?
I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed when it comes to the relationships I've made in wrestling, right?
Mhm.
Cindy Rogers, my one-time tag partner, one-time foe. I traveled a lot with her. I love her to death. I still love her to death. Unfortunately, a lot of these people I don't speak to all the time anymore. But we're all still in each other's lives.
Right.
Cindy and Annie Social was my tag partner. The truth is, when I met her, I hated her. I mean, hated her. Couldn't stand her. And she started training at the Animal House, which was being run by Trent Acid, Johnny Cashmere at the time. And Trent, who was one of my best friends, said to me, he was like, "Yo, do me a favor, like, don't hate my girl. Like, if you actually get to know her, I think you guys would really like each other." And I was like, "Fine." So then I started to actually spend time with her, and now that's my life partner. Like, I would kill, everyone else over her. Like, I love that girl. Um, Homicide I've known since when Jersey All Pro started. He was brought in. I was brought in to manage him and a tag team called NC-17. They were all Hispanic, and we were the Nation of Immigration. And the joke was I was the white chick that got them all the green cards.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So, I met
Wow.
Homicide, the first show we did together.
Right.
And he was, he heard I was training to wrestle at the time. And so he always made sure I had spots on shows. And I would drive up with a carload of the boys. And in Bayonne, where they were running, right after the show, there was a bar across the street. Didn't card anybody, so it didn't matter how old any of us were. And after the show, the boys being the boys want to go over, try to pick up whatever. That wasn't my scene. So I remember the first night we worked together, everything went well. We go into the bar and there's like almost want to call it like a candy cane shaped bar.
Okay.
And on the hook part sits Homicide with a beer watching the baseball game. Nobody else is around him. He's by himself. The boys now scurry off to find women, whatever. So I go down and I go around and the seat next to him is open. And I said, hey, can I sit here? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. So I hop up, and this will tell you how old this is. And he laughed about it then. I ordered myself a Zima. I'm not a beer drinker.
Oh, Zima, man, that's old school.
I ordered myself a Zima and ordered him another beer.
Right.
And he made fun of me over the Zima. But we sat there for the rest of the night, just bullshitting, talking about, growing up, our families, wrestling, just everything. And then, when the boys are ready, we leave. And the next show we come back, we work together. Everything's great. We go across to the bar. He's at the hook part of the bar again. And there's a Zima sitting in front of the chair next to him
Oh, that's cool.
for me. So I go up, hop up on the bar stool. And again, we're just sitting there talking all night. And not even always about wrestling, baseball, just everything. And that's how he became one of my best friends.
I love hearing stories about that,
Yeah.
because a lot of times I even know now, like I said, I've been in the business for a little over 5 years, and it's like most of the time I don't even talk wrestling when I'm in the locker room. I'm talking
Yeah.
other things, with some of the boys and the girls, because like we there's enough wrestling. We got enough to worry about. So it's like,
Yeah. I can talk wrestling with you, but we're going to have a much deeper connection if we're talking about something else.
absolutely, absolutely. So as you were, going to shows and you're getting booked, excuse me, what were some of the challenges you faced as a woman in the world of professional wrestling?
Well, again, when I started, we weren't a dime a dozen. We were an attraction match.
Right.
And not every promotion wanted to have an attraction match. So there weren't a lot of opportunities for us then. And then as more women got into wrestling, it was these obnoxiously good looking women. And then promoters wanted to book them regardless of skill or talent.
Of course. Right.
So those were always kind of, and then trying to get a fair payday was an issue. So off the top of my head, like those were the real issues we had.
Wow. Yeah, it's unfortunate that, when you said it was not that many back then, because obviously what we saw on our television was women weren't really shown for their athletic prowess. You know what I mean? It was more or less about beauty, and there's nothing wrong with the beauty. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But I just felt as though they even now, as I look back now, I'm just like, ugh, I cringe sometimes. I'm just like,
Look, the Tori Wilsons, the Stacy Keeblers, they weren't trained wrestlers.
no,
They were models who, were hired for those purposes, and then were trained to do when they had, the matches that they had, they were trained to do like those matches.
right.
And again, that's not me slighting them in the least.
No, 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 no,
If,
no, not at all.
if I had been them and was given the opportunity, I would have taken it too.
Absolutely.
But that's the reality of where we were. They, and they're almost kind of back to it now, where they're hiring athletes from other sports as opposed to people who want to be a wrestler.
Yeah, you kind of take that with a grain of salt, because if you know, you know. So, what led to, in regards to the in-ring part, what led to you scaling back and more or less retirement, as far as, okay, I'm going to just take a step back, from the in-ring stuff?
Yeah. So, as I said, I had started a game late. I was getting older. I'm now 45. And I had been diagnosed with a few health conditions. I have rheumatoid arthritis. At one point, I was on the verge of COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder. I had heart surgery when I was 30. So all of that and all the bumps I took started to catch up to me. And I couldn't wrestle at what I thought was a good level anymore. And there are now so many women wrestlers that the business was okay if I left.
Right.
I can go now. So I had to come to the realization that it was just time. It was just time to go.
But having the humility to say that to yourself, hey, you know what? It's time to back out. Everything is good now. I left it better than I found it. And I think that's where a lot of people come to those
I mean, I
crossroads.
probably should have backed out 5 years before I did, but
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, I held on as long as I could,
Right, 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 right.
and the whole time with my family wanting me to quit.
Mm, I got you. I
They
got
didn't
you.
want me to wrestle.
Got it. Now, all of this leads you to being a coach at the Monster Factory. So,
I'm gonna tell you how that happened.
yeah, and that was going to be my next question. Floor is yours.
So I had met Danny Cage one time, ironically at a New Kids on the Block concert. We happened to be sitting in the same section.
Right.
And you're in wrestling long enough, you know people even though you don't know them. Right. So me and Danny
Correct.
knew of each other, and we have enough mutual friends that we know the other's not an asshole.
Right.
Um, so I met him in person at the concert, and then he invited me to like come hang out and see a Monster Factory show or whatever, whenever I wanted.
Right.
So at one point, I had stopped into the school on a training night, check
Hmm.
everything out. I think I'd come to a Factory Friday show too.
Okay.
Checked it out. Cool. So I had my last official match in November 2019,
Okay.
and I'm done. I have my weekends back now. Life's good. I'm not doing anything in wrestling anymore. I'm done. And then March 2020 hits, and the first thing that hit in March 2020 was the speaking out movement in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we could do hours on that, but
Hmm.
it led to a lot of people questioning why more women weren't in coaching or leadership roles within the industry. And so I'm sitting at home the one day, and Danny Cage slides into my Twitter DMs, and he's like, "Hey, what's your phone number? I want to call you and talk to you about something." So I send him my phone number.
Hmm.
About an hour later, he calls me, and he goes, "Have you ever thought about coaching?" And I went, "No." And he goes, "Do you wanna?" And I was like, And at that time, he had also talked to and was bringing on board Ricky Reyes,
Right.
who I had known for years. That's my brother. I had also gone to training classes Ricky Reyes had led. He is a phenomenal coach and trainer.
Absolutely.
He has the
I
ability
agree.
to break everything down to the smallest movement for you. I don't have that talent. And that's what I said to Danny. I said, "Look, I don't have the talent to be able to break it down like that for people. I can clean it up once you teach it to them, but I don't have the break it down to the smallest, walk you through every." And Danny went, "You don't need to." Danny's like, "I'm good at that. Ricky's good at that. Like, we all bring something different to the table." Um, and Danny's really good about convincing you can do something you don't think you can do.
I can
Yeah.
vouch for that. Trust me.
Um,
I can vouch.
and he, he was so like amped up on the idea that I went, "I'll give it a try," right? Because I'd never thought about coaching. Because again, I didn't think it was something I would be good at. But then when the guy who owns the number one ranked wrestling school in the world calls you and goes, "Hey, you want to come coach here?" Duh. Yeah. So that was March. COVID had just started to roar up. Everything closed down for a few weeks. So I think it was the end of maybe the beginning of June when the school was actually open back up again. And we could go in and start coaching with protocols put into place and stuff like that. So that's how I ended up at the Monster Factory. And I heard afterwards that it was actually Gabby Ortiz who said to him, "Why don't you call Missy and ask Missy to come and coach?"
Wow.
Um, Mind you, Gabby Ortiz, who I had met one time on a show, we got booked for Jenny Rose was running a Fed,
Okay.
and we got booked in a tag match. It was me and Gabby against Sumi Sakai and Vita Von Star.
Okay.
Uh, and we were in Gorilla getting ready to go out right behind the curtain, and our ref goes, mother-daughter tag team to me and Gabby. And I go, normally that would piss me off, but she's so pretty that if you think something that gorgeous came out of me, I'm gonna be all right with that one. So, but we had a great time at that show. Me and her just clicked. But it's not like she was one of my best friends. It's not like we knew each other very well. So for her to step up and be like, hey, you ever thought about Missy? Means a lot to me. And I started coaching there, and that was, yeah, almost 4 years ago.
It's crazy to think about. It was 4 years ago. We were completely shut down, locked
Yeah,
down as an entire planet. It's insane to even think about now. But as you were starting to get to grow into your role, as coach,
I'm
what
still
was,
growing into that role.
and that's okay. But as you were, it's almost, especially during that time as you were transitioning into the role, I might add, I guess, what's the difference now of being a professional wrestler and versus coaching? What was the
I
differences and what were
was,
some of the similarities?
when I started coaching, I was in the fake it till you make it mode.
Hmm.
Um, I used to train in Reading with a kid, Matt Bomboy, and he always said the best advice I ever gave him was, if you act like you know what you're doing, people will treat you like you know what you're doing. Um, so at first, and there are still times where I feel like I'm faking it till I make it, right? Where I don't know what I'm doing. But there are other times where I'll teach the kids something and you see it click,
Hmm.
and I go, that's why I'm here. So it's different, right? I don't have to take all the bumps anymore, which is great.
Hmm.
um and I have to, instead of thinking about what do I want to do, where do I want to go, it's what do I want these kids to do, where do I want them to go, where do they want to go. I mean, you've been around me at the school. I'm all about those kids, man.
Right.
And you're one of my kids as far as I'm concerned. Like, your family, D. And that whole place is just a big extended family.
I agree. I was a total stranger to the wrestling business side of it, and the fact that I can text somebody or whatever to just to shoot the breeze, you know what I mean? Like that's like one of the coolest things in the world, you know what I mean? To pick up a guy like the Beer
Like,
City Bruiser, and he's like, "Hey man,
I
give me a
love
call
it.
sometime."
Sorry, I love it when you do something cool, like get a suite with your credentials at like a WWE pay-per-view, and you're like sending me pictures. Like that, that sets my soul on fire now.
Right, and I was gonna ask you that, is that what is the biggest as a coach now? Is it more or less about, let's say, some of your students getting booked to one of the big independent promotions, or if they're doing extra work, or is it them getting something at practice, at training? What's the biggest joy for you?
Both. Right, because you got those kids getting all that extra work. Mimi got signed to WWE.
Right.
Goldie and Brett have had numerous extra works.
Hmm.
Goldie just got booked for New Japan in
New
California.
Japan.
Like,
Yeah, I saw that. I saw the graphic.
that
I'm like,
stuff.
wow.
That kind of stuff. Yeah, it as a coach, that's awesome. But it's also awesome when we've got other kids at the school. I'm going to use Aiden Nitro as an example,
Right.
who came in during our kids camp, quiet, shy, reserved, like, oh my. And now, like, he walks in like he's got this personality. So to see how much coming to wrestling training has helped him come out of his shell, to knowing some of the kids are having hard emotional times, or hard times at home,
Right.
and coming to the school is their getaway. um all of it means so much to me. I Because again, not all of them are ever going to make it to a TV company. Statistically, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But seeing each one of them succeed on whatever level, to whatever makes them feel like they've succeeded. Like, we just had our first training class of the year last Tuesday, and I've got them right here. I had all the kids fill out 3 goals for themselves for the year. because I want them to see them setting goals for themselves and then working towards. If you see this shaking now, the other cat's up here, and was petting herself on the iPad. Um, but to see them setting goals for themselves and then reaching those goals, like that's, as a coach, there's no better feeling in the world.
Yeah, I love hearing that. And speaking of which, obviously we have the docu-series Monster Factory, which you can see on Apple TV. It's six 30-minute episodes, and
Episodes,
they
yeah.
really go in depth into what it's like in regards to on your side as far as coaching you and Dan. Obviously the day in the lives of our highlighted I don't know, call superstars. Then of course
They are
there's cameras.
superstars.
Yeah, they are. And I mean, all of us had a big part in it. So as a coach, how was that experience for you, you know, having the cameras around and trying to have some filter, but then of course like you're coaching, you know what I mean, and you want to get your point across.
When it
What was that
when
experience like
it's
for you?
when it started, I hated it. I didn't want to do it.
Oh,
I didn't come to the Monster Factory to be on TV. I came to coach kids. That's what I
right,
wanted to do.
right.
So the first day we get there, um, and we're filming, and there's all these camera guys, and Dan's leading training. And at one point, the kids were lined up doing their roles, and I'm standing where I stand for this because I'm watching feet work. And Zach Cooperstein, who was the director of photography for the
Hmm.
for the show, who I aptly nicknamed Sparkles later in filming,
Hmm.
and that stuck for him. So I'm gonna refer to him as Sparkles. He's got a camera and he's coming backwards, and he looks back at me and goes, "Hey Missy, like, can you move out of the way?" And like that was like the end of it for me. Like I walked over and like stood against the wall to the point where at one point like Dan looked around and was like, "Where's Missy?" And I'm like apparently I'm in the way. Like all of that bothered me so bad. I hated it. But the more I got to know the crew, like that helped me, and then I was all in, and then I was great about it. But if it wasn't for like Galen, Will, Nady, Janie, like those were the people that made me embrace that whole situation. Because, like I said, yeah, filming that whole series was great for everyone, but at first it was just a pain in my ass. They were in
Right.
the way. Wasn't what I came here to do. So
The award-winning Monster Factory, I might
the
add.
award,
So
yes,
absolutely, we are a part of history, ladies and gentlemen.
we
But
are.
Well, again, we've come here to talk about your promotion, your all women's promotion, Bell to Bell. How did this come to be?
So I never wanted to run a women's fed ever. I've said that for years, millions of times.
Why?
I just didn't, man. I just didn't. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. Booking all women and dealing with all women is way more difficult than dealing with male wrestlers. It just is, and that's not me knocking them. It just is. Um, and again, it would be me putting my money on the line, right? Every promoter takes a risk.
Agreed.
And I was always like, I'm not that dumb. I'm not risking my money on that. So there was a women's wrestling fed running up this way, who I'm not going to name,
Hmm.
who I'd worked with for, I don't know, a year and a half maybe,
Okay.
trying to help them out, right? Because being a female wrestler, I get it from both sides. Like I understand both sides of that coin. So I was trying to help out. And then I kind of stepped away for a bit, for months, and apparently shit went bad, and that blew up, and that fed wasn't there anymore. And I guess some of the girls felt like they had gotten burned in that whole thing. Um, and I had a promoter in a different state hit me up when everything got blown up on the internet.
Hmm.
Um, to say to me like, hey, like I'm sure you're taking a little bit of a hit for this because you helped them, you wanted them to succeed, like, but just know that like you did what you could, like this isn't your fault. And at the end was like a little line, and and if you ever decide to do anything, let me know. I would love to be supportive. And I was like, thanks. And then 2 days later, Danny Cage again makes you believe you can do things you don't want to do.
Right.
Hits me up and he goes, because clearly he sees all the backlash. And he says, you should run an all women's fed out of the factory. Keep me out of it. He's like, you can use the factory, the ring, everything we have. You run it, keep me out of it. I was like, I got to think about it. And then one of the first people I called was Gabby Ortiz. And I was talking about it with her. And she was like, I think you should do it. And I said, then I got to come up with a name. And she says to me, I always thought if I ever ran a women's company, I'd call it Bell to Bell. So she wanted BELLE to TOBELLE. And I went, oh, I think I'm going to have to steal that. And she's like, God. I said, but I'm going to make it the number 2 and Bell, BELLE, strong woman, to Bell, BELL, ring bell. She was like, oh, that's awesome. So really the name came from Gabby Ortiz. And then I just altered it slightly. And I'm like, and then once you get a name, man, ideas start going. And then, I think I had booked the show and I was still telling people I was thinking about it. But yeah, so then I picked a date and a time and I cleared the date with Dan for the factory. And then I started hitting some girls up. Like, we just announced it on New Year's. This stuff was being booked and plotted in October. I just wanted to give some time for things to die down a little bit.
Agreed.
But I had hit the girls up. I knew who was working. Like I announced everything. We're filming this on a Sunday. I've announced everything but the main event up to right now. I'll announce the main event tomorrow. Wait, you're not going to put this out today, are you?
No, not
Great.
at all.
Main event is Rebecca Scott versus Notorious Mimi. So I can tell you that, but I've had this show booked for at least a month and a half, 2 months now. I mean, I'll tell you, the second show is already pretty much completely booked. I'm waiting for confirmation from one person. But that's how prepared we are. And then, I decided I wanted to run every other month because every month would be too much for me.
Right.
So I got the dates I wanted to run, sent them to Danny. He cleared them all, that they were available, gave them to me. So.
Well, congratulations on getting that circuit. I didn't know anything about it until I saw it on social media. And I'm just like, wow. Like I followed you guys and I did everything as far as follow and all the social media platforms and everything.
I see it. I appreciate that.
No problem. And the next question I was going to ask, now obviously, with Gabby, you called her and she gave you the idea of the name and everything. But talk about some of the members of the roster that you have and what made them a perfect fit for this particular promotion that you're running.
Clearly I started at home, right? So I went Monster Factory first.
Right.
So clearly Gabby was in from the get-go because Gabby will be in on anything I'm doing that she wants to be in on.
Right.
Forever. Same with Mimi, right? Like, I've known Mimi now 4 years. There is not a human being with a better head on their shoulders than
at their
Mimi.
age. Yeah.
And she just, no, period.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with her age. Albeit she just turned 21. That girl is so comfortable in her own skin with who she is. Like, you can't, I love that girl. And she's phenomenal in the ring, right? And then, Monster Factory's other students. Salem was training there. Nevaeh Madonna, Stevie Brooks. Ruby O'Connor's going to ref the first couple shows for me. Then we'll transition her into wrestling on the shows. Clara Carrera's trained at the Monster Factory for a while.
Right.
So it was kind of going to home and going, hey guys, I'm going to do this. You guys want in? Yeah, anybody want to work? And then I reached out to some of the girls that I'm friends with, that I knew that had gotten burned by the previous promotion. In Christina Marie, Ultraviolet, and Rebecca Scott. Three phenomenal female talents in their own right. And they also all three happen to be friends of mine. And then I started looking for people who were a little local, because again, I'm responsible for this entire budget now. Like, this is all my money that I'm playing with.
Right.
But people who had good attitudes, good work ethics, and just needed some more exposure. So that's where, I pull in the Avery Jackses or the Becca Wileys. And then, I got to talking, Vicious Vicky is a good friend of mine. I've known her for years.
Right.
She's like the it girl in New Jersey. So I'm running Jersey. It makes sense to book her. And then it was funny. I happened to be talking to Jenny Rose, who people will remember from Ring of Honor. She did a bunch of stuff in Japan. Like I said, she ran her own Fed for a little bit. And she hears about it. And I said, now she hasn't wrestled in, I don't know, a while.
Okay.
And I said, you want to come wrestle? She's like, yeah. I was like, let's go. So, she hasn't wrestled in a while. So then I had to get her a good heel. So, and that's where Valerie Verman came in.
Oh yeah. Good stuff. I like her. She's awesome.
Because that girl plays heel to a T.
Indeed.
So that's what I looked for. Now, are all those people going to be on every show? No. I think there are 5 people I've given all of the dates to. And said, you're on all of these. And that is, I'll break the exclusive here for you, Derek. Gabby and Mimi. Two people I didn't hit on. Zoe Cannon, who is a student out of Jesus Rodriguez, Ricardo Rodriguez's Three Legacies promotion. I did not give this person all the dates, but Adriana Mosley is out of, I think she lives in Virginia or Delaware, but I met her working in Delaware, but she's on the first show. But as far as people who got all the dates, Gabby, Mimi, Zoe, Avery Jax has them all. Becca Wiley has them all. So you'll see those 5 people on all of the shows throughout the year. And you'll probably see a bunch of the people that are on the first show, but I'm, going to try and add in some new flavors. I can tell you the second show I've got KZT coming in. Second show I got a Harleen Lopez coming in. Sammy Chaos is coming in. Kate Thorne's coming in for the second show. The July show I just signed Nihir Robles from Puerto Rico.
Oh,
is going to come in.
Incredible.
So I'm trying to keep a good core and mix a little bit of other people in as well.
Now, we're talking about, obviously, you're the owner, you're the booker and everything.
Owner, booker, promoter, yeah.
Everything
ends with me.
Now, will you be bringing in people to assist you with some creative? Would you be bringing some
other? Nope.
So everything falls on you. Wow.
That's what everybody wanted, right?
Right.
People wanted a female wrestling promotion run by a female wrestler. Well, now you got it.
No, not, and I totally get it. I was talking about where there going to be other women promote as far as they helping you out.
No. And again, for me, I might be a little bit of a control freak, but that's my money. That's my money. So at the end of the day, if I make it or lose it, that's on me. So I don't like to let other people play with my money.
So you said this is
now I have a group of people coming in to help me on show day. There'll be a handful of the Monster Factory students to run sound, to run the camera, run the switcher, work the door, work concessions, all of that, But anybody you see on the show, including our ringside photographer is Jess. My ring announcer is Rosaria. And Rosario will be doing commentary with Savannah Ray. So everyone you see performing on the show are refs. Julie Rogan from Worldwide Dojo, one of Cheeseburger students. and then Ruby O'Connor, who's a Monster Factory student, are all women. And I think that's really important.
Talk about the potential growth of this promotion, because I think, and I've always been an advocate for women's professional wrestling, going back to when I was a kid, being fans of like Wendy Richter and Velvet McIntyre, Leilani Kai, Judy Martin, Sensational Sherry. You know what I mean?
Oh,
The list
yeah,
goes on and on of the women that I was fans of, as a kid.
yeah.
Do you see more? Could you potentially see more women gravitating towards Bell to Bell to saying, "Hey, I want this promotion to go to even greater heights than, okay, we're just gonna be local, but to take it here or take it there." Could you potentially see that happening?
I mean, anything I guess is potential, right?
Right.
But for right now, I'm good just running shows out of the factory.
Hmm.
Would it be nice to make a little money? Yes. But I've told everyone if I break even, I'll be happy. Like I just don't have to pay to hang out with my friends, you know. But I'm doing this to give back to the women in wrestling because I feel like so much was given to me in wrestling. So this is my way of going, okay, guys, like now I'm going to bet on you guys. And here's a funny little story for you, but I have a great niece, Kayla, who is 7.
Okay.
And she's heard me talk that I was going to open this promotion. So on New Year's, I'm at her house with her. I have my iPad waiting for the ball to drop so I can launch everything. I was having issues getting the website to launch on New Year's Eve. Finally got it figured out. Website's up. She's looking at the roster page. She goes, "Wait a minute, where are the boys?" And I said, No, it's an all women's promotion." She goes, "That's not fair." So I had to so I had to explain to her that customarily it's been a boys club and 7 boys matches to 1 girls match, and this just kind of tilts it back and gives more exposure to more women that they aren't actually getting normally. But I just loved how she was like, "That's not fair." I was like,
Oh man. But when I see, obviously wild superheroes, what I mean, a promotion for women, you know what I mean? They have a TV deal, they're on TV and everything. I think that's great. But I think on an independent level, I think this could be major, major league for
I
you.
want I want more wrestling, less campy shit. you
Right.
know, I want the girls to be able to go out and be creative and show what they can do. That's what I want.
That's the most important thing, because a lot of times a lot of people are told, you're told what to do. You're told. But I think for them to kind of think on their feet or share ideas with each other, whether it's a match, whether it's a promo or wherever it might be, I think this can really, really help so many women in this professional wrestling industry. Because like I said, when I saw it, I was just like over the moon for this, because I'm like, it's about damn time. It really is, because I think you see it on some of the national TV, promotions. Is like the women don't get the time. The women don't get the time.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's like, and it's an ongoing thing. And I just think this, like, you know what? Buck stops here. Bell to bell is here now. And I think this can really, really set the tone for women's wrestling on the independent level. And I think I'm
And
I'm thinking it's gonna get big.
well, I mean, from your mouth to God's ears, but and I'd be remiss not to thank people like my buddy Francis Legit, who wrestled in England as Cabby, who the whole time I was putting stuff together, naming shows, doing graphics, I would send it to him. I was
Mhm.
like, "Does this look good?" So, I got to thank him, Kevin Kelly, who I reached out to when I was still thinking about it,
Mhm.
and got some really good advice and feedback from him, and him telling me he said the same thing that Danny said, and that when I talked to Homicide about it, he goes, "Missy, if anybody can make this work, it's you."
Right.
So those guys really made me comfortable to go, "All right, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's give it a try."
Awesome. Well, March 2nd is going to be the very first event. You can get your tickets right now at bell2bell.com. and that's again it's spelled Belle. I'm sorry, is it Belle, the number two, Bell.com. Tickets are starting at $5, okay? Tickets are starting at
Well,
five.
no. That's a VIP upgrade to get in early.
Mm-hmm.
The lowest ticket to get in is $10 for GA.
Okay, my bad. $10 to get in. Okay. But when you are again putting this card together, when you're putting all of these talents together and everything, what was the goal for the first show in regards to saying, hey, we're here, or this is more or less a kind of trial and error thing?
No, well, I laid out who I had, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in my head, I'm like, which of these people do I think are going to gel well together, right?
Right.
Visually, what's going to be a really good match, right? That's where you get top tier Tiara James versus Gabby. Like, to me, that looks like that's going to be a fucking knockout match. And then, when I'm looking at Jenny Rose hasn't wrestled in a while, and she's a babyface. So I got to get her a really good heel. Well, Valerie Verman fits that, and then I'm looking at, Clara Carreras, who I'll tell you now is in the first match on the show. Clara Carreras versus Becca Wiley is the first match on the show because Clara has such energy about her.
He does.
But like when you're talking about kicking the very first show off, and I said this to her, I go, I need you to go out there with your energy and set the tone. So that's kind of what I look at, and then you look at the entire card and who's in your main event except the only person that was formerly signed to WWE, who I think is one of the best workers on the card, bar none. So then you get Mimi. Okay, well, who can I put in the ring with Mimi to make it a main event? And you look at Rebecca Scott and all the work she's put in, and that girl's a self-promoting machine. And she works very hard and she's very good at what she does. So bam, there's the main event. And then I don't think I haven't seen advertised anywhere Vicky versus Ultraviolet. And I think that'll be a really good match. So bam, you put that together. So that's how I kind of went with it. Was who do I have that's kind of new and maybe needs to be led a little bit, i.e. Becca Wiley,
Of course.
Claire
Right.
Carreras,
Mm-hmm.
And then, but who's going to work really well together? What do I think if I give, two people, or there's one tag match on the first show, 4 people. If I give them the ring as this canvas to paint me a picture, what combination here is going to get me the prettiest pictures?
Well said.
And doing that with trying to mix up matchups that, I know Mimi and Rebecca Scott have wrestled before. I know that Gabby and Tiara James have wrestled each other before, but trying to come up with as many unique matchups as I can, is also something, while giving some of the newer girls people they haven't worked before, so that they have a new experience. So that's kind of what I thought about. And you're not going to see heavy angles on the first show.
That was going to be my next question, as far as the direction you were going to go to, as far as story wise, or this was just going to be all just regular wrestling matches. I'm sure
at some point, maybe even on the second show, you'll start seeing some angles flesh themselves out. There's nothing really angled on the first show. It's guys, like, let's not let that distract for this first show. Just go to the ring and show these people what you can do. That's it. Just go be pro wrestlers and create.
Well, I am definitely.
We'll see how it plays out, and then, like I said, angles may create themselves based on what happens. Who knows? Do I have ideas for stuff I can make an angle once it happens to thread back to? Yeah.
Right.
But I don't think the first show needs to be angle heavy.
Got it. Now, before we get out of here, where can, number one, all the social media for Bell to Bell and your own social media as well. Where can the people find you, and where can all the social media for you and Bell to Bell?
I'm not on Facebook much. I do have a Facebook page still. It's Missy Sampson.
Mhm.
Um, please don't message me on there. The messenger messes up my phone. I'm on Twitter at Wrestling Missy. Instagram is at Wrestling Missy and the number one. That's pretty much where you can find me. Bell to Bell is everywhere. It's just at Bell to Bell at Bell to Bell. BELLE, the number two, BELL. That's Twitter, Instagram. There's a Facebook page. Um, yeah, belltobell.com is the website. Try to keep it as easy to follow as possible.
Good, good. And where could people watch? Will this be streaming online?
No, we are not streaming anywhere. I am in the middle of trying to work out where after the show is done, we will tape it and live edit it while it occurs.
Mhm.
And then I'm trying to work out the website has a page that says pay-per-view.
Mhm.
It's a holder page right now. We're trying to work out being able to then upload the show to the website for people to buy to be able to watch it afterwards. Whether that's right after or a day or two after, but within a day or two, being able to upload it and then people can buy it and watch it off the website. That's not 100% done yet. That's still being worked on.
Well, that's a smart marketing idea. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, Missy, again, you're an extremely busy person again, and I thank you very, very much for taking the time out of your extremely busy schedule to come on to the D-Lew podcast to talk about your illustrious wrestling career that you've had 28 years in the business. You coaching and now being a promoter for your own wrestling company. I'm proud to say that that I'm one of your students. I'm proud to say that I'm part of the Monster Factory, and anything that I could do from home or whatever the case may be, to assist Bell to Bell, you already know you can reach out to me however you need.
Thanks, D. Thank you for asking me to come on your podcast. I love you. I said it before. I'll say it again. You are
You
family
got
to me. I love you very much, my friend. Thank you for having me on and giving me this avenue to discuss, my career and coaching and now Bell to Bell. I appreciate you very much, man.
All right, thank you.